Bruins
lose.
Hey guys, sorry I've had kind of a hectic afternoon, so I didn't get the chance to listen to my daily affirmations. So I'm hoping that you won't mind if I do that real quick before we get into the game. So if you just... The Bruins are a playoff team. The Bruins are a playoff team. This game was not a must-win. This game was not a must-win. Hampus Lindholm is an NHL caliber defenseman. Hampus Lindholm is an NHL caliber defenseman. Wow. You know, it really does help. I feel a lot better.
Hey there, my good boy.
Bees lose 3-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning at Not Amalie Arena. I can't even remember what they call it now, but I know that that's wrong. The goal scorers in order were Casey Mittelstadt, Charles-Edouard Dastou, Darren Radish, and of course Nikita Kucherov. Gee, Bill, your team lets 2 defensemen have goals? The loss goes to Jeremy Swayman, who had 20 saves. You would have liked 21. On 22 shots for a .909 save percentage, the win to Andrei Vasilevsky, who made 21 saves on 22 shots for a .955 save percentage. For those keeping track at home, that's better. I'll say right now that I categorically refuse to blame Swayman. The second goal was bad. Yeah, that's going to happen. I mean, Vasilevsky almost let in a couple long-range shots and one that you really would have liked to see us put away, but yeah, that's going to happen. You need to be able to come back from that. I do not think that defending even, we'll talk about the defense, but I do not think that our side of the blue line was the problem in this hockey game. In the last 120 minutes of action on the ice, the Boston Bruins have put up 2 goals. That's an average for those doing the math at home. First of all, you're doing a lot of math. Let's ease up. Second of all, that's an average of 1 goal per 1 game. That's not very good. The only way you can win scoring only 1 goal in a game is either in a shootout, which that's not going to happen in the playoffs, or with a shutout. We might get some of those. Let's see how often that actually happens. There were 13 shutouts last year in the playoffs, and I know what you're thinking. Hey, that's pretty good. That's almost all the wins you need. If we got all 13 of those shutouts, we would only need to score more than 1 goal 3 times. If you're thinking that, first of all, seek help. Second of all, let's look at what happened the year before that. There weren't quite 13 shutouts. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how about the year before that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in the 2 years before, there were 11 combined. Beginning to think that 13 might have been a little anomalous. So I hope it's not lost on anyone that the level of offensive production that we've had recently could prove to be problematic in, say, a 7-game series. But perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself, because in order to have bad offensive production in a 7-game series, you need to make it to a 7-game series. The Bruins are still in a good position to do that, especially with Detroit losing. It seems like there are fewer and fewer teams that can realistically close this gap, but man, we're trying to make the gap as close as it can be. Our next game is today, probably when I upload this, against the Philadelphia Flyers. Is this a must-win? Yeah, it is. Not even in a mathematical, if we don't get this, it's going to be so hard to make the playoffs and we're going to need help, because we won't. We'll still control our own destiny. But if you lose yet another game in a row, it seems like less of a tough road run and more of a pattern, especially if you lose another game while scoring 1 or fewer goals. But why don't I talk about the game real quick? Let's start with the pregame. In the pregame, Lohrei skated and then was not ready to go, so Jordan Harris went in his stead. Was this punishment for Yoki Haru's last game? Maybe. I'm not even torn up about Lohrei not being ready. 1, because I don't see a huge reason to force him and then get a worse injury. Second of all, this team is comprised almost exclusively of depth defensemen. It's good to see what each of them has. And I thought Harris played fine, unremarkable. I don't remember him doing anything too egregious. There was a miscommunication early along with Swayman. Nothing that yielded anything bad, so whatever, forgive and forget. We have depth defensemen. It's good to keep people game ready. just in case, if we get a couple injuries come playoffs, we have people who are ready for it. I think that must have been the logic to put Asamoah in for Reichel. I hate it, to be honest. Nothing against Asamoah. I actually thought he was okay. I liked picking him up. I think he's played fine. I think Reichel has an X factor at least. Not like literal, NHL 26 X factor, the wheels, kind of, right? Like the gold version, not one of the good ones, but the kid's fast. He can play pretty well on the boards. He can create a little bit of space. He can, close distances quickly. That's how he got a goal in his first game with the big team. So, yeah, I don't think this was done for roster or call-up accommodation purposes, because a healthy scratch, from what I understand, should still count against an emergency call-up. And there's no roster limit right now. So as long as we're cap compliant, which clearly we are since they were both in the NHL before this anyway, I think this was really just a personnel decision. Personnelly, get it? I don't really get it. The decision, not the joke. I thought that was pretty clever. We got off to a better start than last game, so that's good. We didn't immediately concede 2 goals. We just blew chances to score them. I thought we dictated the pace of play early on. We put in a long-range shot on Vasilevsky, which is apparently his kryptonite, something I was not aware of. Perhaps I'm a casual. But the puck leaked through and was sitting in the crease, and up came Charlie McAvoy to put it in, and instead he got hooked and dragged to hell, giving the Bruins a 2-minute-ish power play. We'll talk about why it was ish. Charlie McAvoy, it's hard to blame him for not putting it away, but man, he's a defenseman, he's a big guy, you really want him to kind of muscle, find a way, you want him to find a way. Maybe that's not reasonable, but you want him to. And you will rue that you don't, especially when you see this team's power play. The power play was bad today. Honestly, it felt like through much of it that Tampa had the advantage, or at least was playing even strength. We could not get a zone entry, and Tampa has an aggressive penalty kill that makes a zone entry hard. But when we did get a zone entry, we would just not do anything. The best what happened was passing around the perimeter, because otherwise it was forcing pucks into the slot where there was either literally no one there to receive them, or someone there to receive them wearing a blue jersey. It was an unpleasant watch. I might get into this with the CAX players. I'm still trying to decide exactly where everyone goes in my head. But Geeky, and I haven't wanted to dogpile on him because he was overperforming earlier in the season, and I knew it then. I think most of us did. Most of us didn't want to believe it. We wanted to believe that he was somehow a 50-goal scorer, but he was overperforming, and my God, has he come back down to earth, and then into the mantle, and then the outer core, and maybe he's somewhere around there. Not inner core yet. You can get worse. We can talk about worse. But on the power play, my God, he should not be on that first unit right now. It's not working. Whatever it is, the power play in general isn't working. I might jumble more than just that, but there's no chance in hell that Geeky, the production hasn't been there. He scored 1 goal in his last 17 or 18 games. You shouldn't keep that guy on the power play just because he scored a bunch earlier in the season. I think he might have actually skated some time with the second power play in this game on our second power play. But I couldn't tell if that was an actual personnel shift or if it was just he hadn't made a change for whatever reason and then was on with some of the second unit. But yeah, I look to mix things up. I look to mix a lot of things up on the front end because there's a lot of things that need to be mixed up. And we even got an extra 30 seconds on that first power play to make something happen because the clock got stopped at 1:16, and then the refs discussed, and then they discussed more, and I got to listen to every song that the DJ had on deck, and some of them were bad, and others were awful. And then we figured it out. It's still not quite clear on exactly what happened there. I guess technical malfunction and the refs weren't paying enough attention. But anyway, that power play ends. We're back to even strength. The period continues, and we end tied at 0. I think we were probably the better team. We definitely had the clearer scoring chances, but, can't convert, so we go in tied. Second period starts, we pick up where we left off. In fact, I think we might even look better. We get good chances, we're physical, we're fast. It feels like we're the team with passion and aggression. Weird that we can never bring that against the Panthers of all people, but I'm glad that we find it occasionally. Jean Aspireau makes a good play, gets deep into the zone, is able to win a puck that kind of flitters around behind the goal line, gets it out, and it comes in front to Casey Middlestat, and he buries it. It's a good goal. It is somebody getting a puck in a good scoring position and putting it into the net, and it is not one of the better scorers on the team doing it, because the better scorers on the team, who I guess, if you want like the numbers, you have Zacha, you have Arvidsson, you have Geeky, and you have Pasternak. What are they doing? Or perhaps, I've never seen both at the same time, but maybe it'll happen. In fairness to Arvidsson and Zacha I'll give a pass for a while because he was so hot throughout all of March. And Arvidsson had some good chances in this game. He takes a weird amount of slap shots for, one a forward to somebody playing in the year 2026. But nonetheless, he had some good looks. Also a good look in the second period pretty soon before the Middlestat goal. And right after the Middlestat goal, the Bruins get almost an identical look. It doesn't go in. You're not always going to score even very good chances on Vasilevsky. But I was glad that we got a goal and then got right back into it and didn't back off, didn't let up any of the aggression, didn't let the puck just come into our zone easy. We kept it in theirs. The forecheck was good, and we were playing well. And then 5 minutes later, we decided to do exactly what we used to and let them have it again. There was a little delay. It was like one of those pills that you take and it gives you like 30 minutes before it takes effect. It was like that, but with the goal. We scored the goal, we kept the pressure up, and then we're like, wait, we scored. And after we score, we get to take the next 10 shifts off. We take a penalty. I saw some griping about the penalty. I thought it was a penalty. I think this was the Minton interference. I'm on a roll. I think this was the Minton interference penalty. If it wasn't, it was another penalty. I didn't think that the reffing was extraordinary today. There were a couple of ostensibly missed calls that I think generally skewed in favor of Tampa, the fact that they weren't called, which I don't like to complain about refs. I don't think it's interesting. I think it's usually not really in good faith. My big problem with that is, if you remember the Stadium Series game, they weren't missing any calls. They were calling about everything that you could conceive to call. But anyway, the call was fine. We go to the penalty kill. We look not bad per se, but their chances on the power play look a hell of a lot better than ours. But we get out of it. We kill the penalty off. The period continues. We remain on our heels. Pretty soon after the penalty, they get about a minute and a half of zone time. Maybe not that long, but about a minute of zone time in our O zone. We look like we're still on the kill, but we fight it off. And, bend, don't break. It doesn't work great in hockey. It's maybe a little better in football, but if you don't break, then it's good enough. Actually, it's probably better in hockey because bending but not breaking means they don't score. They scored. Third period. I wasn't very surprised when they scored. We had a chance to clear the puck. I think Peak played it back to them. Ends up in our net. That's going to happen. It's a contingency that you have to prepare for as a National Hockey League team, that the other team will score more than 0 goals. I know our plan right now is that we score 1 goal and then the other team scores 0 goals and then we can win 1-0. And if that happens 82 times, then we win the President's Trophy. But I think we need to be realistic that in at least some games, the other team will score at least 1 goal. Or maybe even 2 goals, perhaps yet 3. But right now it's just 1 apiece. So this is a surmountable deficit because the deficit is 0. It's tied, just like how the game started. We don't seem too keen to surmount it. I complained earlier about the top end talent. I'm not really going to go over the same thing again, but I know we only have one true top line forward, and that's David Pasternak. Maybe there was some talk about Morgan Geeky earlier. I think that's been cooled down a bit. I think Minton was our first center today. Yeah. Is that serious? Are we that we're riding with that? I like Fraser. I think that trade was excellent. I'm so glad he's a Bruin, and I hope he is for a long time. He is not a first center, and he never will be. And I'm not convinced there's anyone, maybe Higgins, but I think we are so far from evaluating that as any sort of realistic possibility that we shouldn't pretend that we have one. And I was happy that we didn't buy at the deadline. I think that would have been insane. The situation was not clear enough yet. And if we buy, and especially if it's a rental, and it doesn't work out, and we give up youth with real upside, then we're in a bad place, a needlessly bad place. So I'm okay with the fact that we do not have real top line talent. But people still get top line minutes, and they're not taking advantage, at least not right now. And I'm not saying that about Minton, because he scored in the last game and he's been good, and he gets some more slack than some of the older guys, some of the more established guys who get paid more money to do less or equal of a job. That doesn't necessarily extend to Pasternak, because I know how his game has changed this year and how he's become more of a playmaker and how many of his assists are primary, which is extraordinary. But when no one else is scoring and you pass the puck to them, you're not going to get a primary assist. You're going to get either a turnover, which we had enough of those today, or you're going to get nothing. You're just going to get the good sensation of a nice tape-to-tape pass, the sort of click. I'm not good at noises, but if I were, then you would get that sensation that I'm describing. But it's 1-1. It's 1-1. And if we can just even batten down the hatches, if the offensive zone stuff isn't coming, if we can be responsible in the O zone and responsible with the puck in the neutral zone and the D zone, and hold them up and make them take bad shots from the side, oh my God. I will not disparage the good name of Jeremy Swayman. I will not ask for Eunice Corpusalo to get more starts. The goal sucks, plain and simple, and it's the game-winning goal. So if you want to transitive property, Swayman cost us the game, yeah. You can take that logic and, ask for a new goalie. See if Stuart Skinner's available. I think he would bring this team around. You live and die with certain players. I said that in the last game, and that's still true. You live and die with Pasta, you live and die with McAvoy, you live and die with Swayman. If you lose because Swayman gives up a soft goal, then you live with it. And I don't think we lost because of that. I think it might be the immediate cause, right? If you want the simplest possible explanation, if you're, a second-rate detective who just wants to check the box, case solved, move on. Yeah, it's a bad goal Swayman lets in and we lose because that goal goes in. Mathematically, that is true. The game-winning goal is on the goalie. And the fact that we scored one goal for the second game in a row in the middle of one of the most competitive playoff pushes in the history of the NHL. I have no idea if that's true, but it felt momentous enough to say. Yeah, then blame him. Blame him. And I hope you feel good about blaming him when you consider what this team would be without him. Imagine what it would be with Stuart Skinner. Not even saying anything against Stuart Skinner. I really don't care about him. But I'll tell you one thing. If Stuart Skinner were this team's starting goalie, first of all, I'm not convinced he'd get more starts than Corpusalo. Second of all, the name McKenna would look really good on the back of, again, the theoretical Bruins jersey that right now is in a different state because I move around too much. And there's still 5 minutes left. We're only down a goal. We can get that second goal, the mythical second goal that we just learned we're allowed to score because they did, right? And it wouldn't be fair if they couldn't, we couldn't. So why don't we just get it together? And the time's getting down, but we're gonna keep it up. We're gonna keep up the pressure. We're gonna pull the goalie, so we'll have 6 forwards and they'll have 5, and we'll spend more time in theirs. And why are they in ours? By the grace of God, Geeky saved himself from being tonight's scratch. Because he saved that goal. He gets back on, I guess it's kind of a back check. It's a type of back check. On the first Tampa chance on an empty net. First chance on an empty net. Why is that a statement? On the first chance on an empty net, Geeky gets back and slides, makes a pretty good save. And then we get the puck, and then we take it down. And now there are 6 of us again, and we've looked into the eyes of the beast. We've seen oblivion, and we've been saved by our goal scorer. Now we can go, and it's in our zone again. But this time, Morgan Geeky ain't coming down that tunnel, because the best player in the league right now, ? I will take McDavid for the rest of my life, because that man has done things on the ice that I haven't seen in my dreams. I haven't seen on video games. I've never seen anywhere. But man, is Kucherov hot, and is he underappreciated? And I don't really know why. I'm not a big believer necessarily in the East Coast, West Coast Canada, South bias. But I feel like you hear so much about Makar and Matthews and McKinnon and McDavid, because his name doesn't start with the letter M. If it were Nikita Mucherov, Mooch? That'd be a cool nickname. Oh, there was that one Trump advisor who had it. Cooch calls game. Bruins lose 3-1. It wasn't a surprise necessarily that we lost. It was disappointing because I thought we played well enough through long stretches of the game that we should have been able to score more, should have been able to compete in that game. You know, when it's 1-1, you think at least overtime. When it's 2-1, you think maybe we can get to overtime. And it didn't happen. And it's not going to happen every time. And it's going to happen less against a really, really good team like Tampa, a team that I think should be the favorites coming out of the East again. But it's still 2 points that we don't have. It's 1 point that we don't have. And towards the end of the game, Brick said something, if you were watching on Nesson, which I assume most of the people here are, because you're either watching from Boston or watching on ESPN Plus, and you can just choose the broadcast. I always choose the Bruins, of course. But anyway, Brick said something towards the end of the game that, now that they're losing, you'll look back on some of the earlier missed chances, McAvoy getting hauled down in the box, couple good, the good Arvidsson shot in the second period. And they bother you. They bother you that we missed them. They bother you now that we're losing. They bothered me then when they happened. Because this team has not shown enough of an ability to consistently score even when the opportunities are good. And I know how hockey works. I have the gift of foresight. I'm not a wizard or a genius. But I know that good teams will score many goals, generally. I think that is generally true. Maybe you get a team like the late 90s Devils where they only need to score 2 on average, and then, Martin Brodeur is just going to brick wall you the entire time. But generally speaking, good teams are going to score many goals. So I know when we have a chance and we don't capitalize, that could be the kind of thing that comes back and bites us in the ass, such as now. And a game where we by share of time, we dominated as much as they did. I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's crazy. I thought we were the better team in the game for as long as they were. But they capitalized on their chances. One of those chances was on an empty net. One of those chances never should have gone in. But it did. It did. They put on shots. The shot totals were even close to equal. In fact, they might have been exactly the same, 22 and 22. No, because the empty net shot doesn't count as a shot against Swayman, so it's actually 22 and 23, I think. Anyway. The shots were about even. Tampa's chances didn't even look better. We might have had the best chances that didn't go in, but they didn't go in. You need to find a way. And it's beginning to feel like this team, even when they play well, can't find a way. It's 2 games. I'm not going to panic. We looked so good before it. I'm really not panicking. But we're going to play 4 of our games on the road in the first round. We know that. And we're going to play, realistically, one of Buffalo, Tampa, or Carolina. So if it's Tampa, this was a preview. Do you feel good? Do you think, we had injuries? Okay, are we a Mason Lohrei away from winning that game? Has any team ever been one Mason Lohrei away from winning a game? We were pretty healthy. They got Hedman on the long-term injured reserve. I think he's still worth more than anyone we got other than McAvoy and Zadorov in terms of defense. We lost, and this was a game that I thought we could lose and it would be okay, and a game where we actually showed some promise on stuff, and it'll be okay. But if we stay cold, if our top talent stays cold in the offensive zone, oh my God, am I scared. This next game, I said at the end of the last video, Tampa, is it a must-win? No. And I've said already in this video, I'm going to say it again. Win against Philly. Win. Not a team that's good enough that they should be able to stifle you after 2 games of being offensively stifled. I want 5. I'll settle for 3 or 2, or if 1 wins and we win 1-0, give it to me. Because right now I'm still more concerned with the points. But show me something. And I'm not talking to the whole locker room. I'm not even talking to the bottom 6. I'm talking to the top 6. I'm talking to 4 guys. David, Pavel, Victor, and Morgan. I want to see y'all. I want to see one of you get a puck in the net. Between takes, I found broken glass on my desk. Why is there broken glass on my desk? CAX for the game. CAX. Because I'm hoping that some people watching this didn't see the last video, I'll just go ahead and tell you. That's captain, assistant, and scratch. Captain's the team's best player for the game, assistant is the unsung hero of the game, and the X is the player who couldn't find a hole deep enough. That's the nice way I'm putting it. So the captain of the game, it was going to be Swayman, in good conscience, after the second goal. I'm sorry, I can't. So it's going to be Middlestat, he scored. Hooray! By default. No one else was really good enough to separate themselves. The alternate is going to be Espijol because on the goal, I think he made the best play. Other than, I guess, I'm so desperate for somebody to put the puck in the net that I'll say that Mitz had the best play on it. But Espijol did a good job carrying the puck in deep, good skating, put himself in a good position. I thought Zadorov also had a good game skating, less good with the puck distribution, but he followed the play up. He, kind of as a deep forechecking, defenseman behind the red line. It wasn't quite a forecheck because possession hadn't clearly shifted hands, but still, he stuck with the play and made a good play and got us on the board and got us the lead for a decent portion of the game. So yeah, Espijol gets the A. And then for the scratch, it was going to be Geeky, but he saved a goal on the empty net. He showed me something, at least a little heart. So the X instead goes to I guess I'd kind of call him the big brother on the team. It's Pasta. And I was just last video saying I think he deserves the C. Not deserves necessarily, because that implies that McAvoy doesn't, and that's not true. That I'd like to see Pasta get the C, and I stand by that. But show me why you're in the conversation. Because what he did was fiddle around with the puck, put it into weird positions, go up and kind of get into the circle about in the O-zone, and then just wave the stick around, and then it was gone. Or passing, the pass to the high slot, both sides of the ice, O-zone and D-zone. We were just moving the puck to the middle, not even looking to see who was there. It really did. I know I started with that sort of skit in the last video about all of the Bruins meeting each other. Did they? Because it felt like it, and that's not just Pasta. Pasta's getting the X today because I expect more out of him because he's the guy. The $11 million man. I'm not even concerned about money because we do a pretty good job balancing our books, other than a couple contracts, but so Pasta takes the flack, Pasta gets the X today, but a lot of the things I said about him could be said about a couple guys, a few guys, a lot of guys on the team. And I promised you a discussion of defensemen, but that's going to come in a second. I want to introduce a new segment, a segment called BS with SB. Now, BS stands for something which I will not repeat, though in school when we used to play the card game, we'd call it Bible scriptures to avoid censure. And SB is me, Southie Bees. BS with SB, and then they're inverse of each other. Anyway, it's a questions section, and I got a few submissions today, so I'm going to go over them. Marat Khuznutdinov enthusiast on Instagram says, no one giving a damn anymore, bruh. This team needs to wake TF up. It feels like that, doesn't it? And I don't want to believe it because I've been so proud of this team's effort this season. A team that I think a lot of people, myself included, counted out early on. And a team that didn't get help at the deadline, a team that's been made to kind of stick to and maximize their resources. But man, there's been a lot of standing around. I kind of poked fun at Zaka last video about that. Yeah, there's not a ton of urgency. I thought I saw flashes of it and maybe even stretches of it in this game, but not enough. And then once we took the lead, it was gone completely and it never really came back. So I thought about including a segment in the last game where I thought about the word to best describe the Bruins' performance. And I went through a few in my head, and the word I was going to use if I decided to include that, which I didn't, was hubris. And I kind of feel like that now. Minton Enjoyer, also on Instagram, says, even with this loss, the Bruins have shown they can compete against top-tier teams. Changing the pace, I also kind of agree with this one. There were stretches of the game, like I said, we were the better team through half the game, give or take. 20 minutes, you want one period and they were better for two. Okay, I don't think that's a nuanced appraisal of the game, but fine. It wasn't a completely one-sided massacre. It wasn't what Pittsburgh did to Florida. Florida, the team that just beat us. It wasn't that. So yeah, the Bruins can compete, and we have an excellent goaltender, despite today's foible. So we can compete, I think, with anyone. I don't think we are a team that anyone would want to see in the postseason. But I think we're a team with manifest flaws. And I think if you catch us on the right day, you can beat the hell out of us. And that's what I'm concerned about. When we get cold and when our leaders get cold, baby, it's cold. And finally, Johnny I Hardly Knew Ya 45 says from Instagram, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. Who's leaving this offseason? Or who do you think should? That's a big picture question, the kind of question I'd usually wait till the offseason to handle, but it is a perfect segue into the last thing I really wanted to discuss, which is our D core. What defensemen do you think are above reproach? By that I mean, whom do you think we hold on to and we keep in this defensive rotation no matter what? I think there are two. I think McAvoy, no matter what happens, he's in. I think that's obvious. And I think Zadorov. Other than that, we know Yoki Haru isn't. We don't know that Lorai isn't, but I would say Lorai isn't. We know that Harris isn't. Peak, Espihol. I've been happier with Espihol than one a lot of people, and two than I certainly expected to be, because when he first came up, I didn't really get it, but he found his way into this rotation, and I think he deserves it. But if every other defender were playing really well and he was playing like garbage, do you think he gets taken off? Like, there's no chance. What I'm saying, there's no chance you scratch McAvoy. McAvoy could play 7 horrendous games in a row, and he's coming back for the 8th. You know that. It's just something you have to do and something you should do. But if Espihol did, would you keep him in? Would you not try Harris once or whoever the odd man out is? Peak? I know there's a lot of anti-Peak rhetoric among the Bruins. I don't know. Bruins fans, no idea what's in the locker room. He's probably a fine guy. I don't hate Peak. Didn't have a good game today. But is he above reproach? Do you absolutely keep him in? And then the last guy, this is the most controversial one, Hampus Lindholm. I'm not convinced he's better than several. I keep notes on the game just so when I come back to make these, I have an idea of what I want to talk about, what stood out to me watching them live. One of the things I said was, do we rate Hampus over Espihol? I don't. Not today, I don't. I was very high on Hampus when we got him. And I thought even before the injury, when he first came, I thought there were nights where he was the best defenseman on the team. Not now. And if it got to a point where he's costing the team, I meant to say this earlier, I'll say this now. He shouldn't be one of the defensemen on the power play units. Look how Zadorov has been skating. He's looked excellent, even with the puck in possession. He got that goal against, Detroit. The go-ahead goal, maybe, against Detroit. Or at least a tying goal. That game was a while ago. I don't quite remember. But yeah, he got the goal where he came down the left side on Detroit. It wasn't a great goal that John Gibson gave up, but he's fast. For a big, strong guy, he's fast. He can skate well. He can move the puck okay. I think he should be on the power play before Lindholm is. And I know that some teams run 2 and some teams run 1 defenseman and some teams run none on a power play, and that we might fiddle with that too. But is Hampus Lindholm should he absolutely be one of the 6 defensemen who starts for us? I don't know. When Lorai is healthy, I don't know. I thought Harris played fine. Harris played better today than Lindholm has played in a lot of games, and Harris played better today than Lorai has played in a lot of games, particularly the 2 that led up to his injury. So, to tie this back into your question, Johnny I Hardly Knew Ya 45. Who's leaving this offseason? On the defensive side, I don't know. But I wouldn't rule anyone out other than the 2 guys I said. I'm not convinced that Lindholm contract is movable, both because I don't quite know the clause that he has on it, and when it kicks in, I'll look that up in a sec. Or if anyone would take it, I would be loath to if I were the GM of any other team. That's a guy I'd like to move off of if we get the chance, just because I think his best hockey is behind him. Nothing against the guy. I think he put in some really good performances in black and gold, and I wish him the best. I just hope that the best is not with us. In terms of other people going, I think it's forwards, mostly. Whereas I think we need to be flexible on defense and rotate people in and out. The problem is really more that we have too many depth defensemen that are filling non-depth roles. So unless we correct that, I think defensemen kind of have to stay as is, other than if we can get rid of Hampus, you gotta take the shot. But otherwise, forwards, especially forward prospects. Not saying get rid of the prospects necessarily, but if you can't find a spot for them, spots that are becoming scarcer when you have guys like Kuznetsov and Minton becoming solid NHL players who are not going to be fringe scratches, nothing. When you have that, when you get a guy like Reichel for a sixth, where does Lysell fit in at this point? I don't think he does. And how long has that experiment been going? If it's not working, or even not if it's not working, if he's not going to fit in on the team, why not get value out of him? Why not put him somewhere where he could be more helpful, both for his sake and for ours? We got Hagens, we got Letourneau, we got other people coming up. We're probably going to have, I don't know where Toronto's pick is going to be, and I don't know what position we'd pick, but there's going to be another pretty highly touted prospect coming in, a number of weeks now. So I think of the NHL players, I'd like to see Hampus go. I don't think it's going to happen. Arvidsson, unless he's willing to take, I wouldn't give him more than 2 years. I think I've heard that he's looking more 3 and is keen to test free agency. If that's the case, I don't think I'd beg him to stay. And it's not even that I haven't been happy with his performance. I know I kind of dogged on him today, but he was, I think, the best of the top producing forwards. And he's been good for the team. He started slow, which I think people are forgetting, the recency bias. He's kind of inverse geeky. But he's performed okay for the team. I just don't see realistically, especially if he's looking again in the $5 million range. I don't want that for term, unless I guess no trade protection. But if we sign him, let's say 5x3, 5.5x3, whatever, 5x3 extension, and he backslides next year, even if there are no trade protections in the next 2 years of the clause, are people giving up $5 million of their cap space for forward, or do we have to retain on it? I mean, it's just, I think we have enough forwards in the organization as a whole that, and people already wanting Hagens to play up, so I mean, we need to make room for more, that I don't think that older guys necessarily have to be kept around. That's an excellent question, though, and I will definitely circle back with a little bit more in-depth and like looking at contracts and putting together the pieces stuff maybe both after the draft, because whom we draft there could affect it, but certainly once the season's over and we get a clearer sense of where we are and where we think we're heading. Thank you all for submitting your questions and statements and expressions of frustration. It is cool. Like I said in the last video, what I wanted to do is have a community to engage with, and in my second video, I'm already engaging with a community. So I really appreciate it. The same call to action, the call to submissions, plural. You got to hear that S. That's an important S, load-bearing S. We'll be after the game tomorrow. I'll be watching. It'll be at 12:30 here on the West Coast, so a nice curtain jerker for me. I'm a night owl. I'm shooting this right now at like 1, and honestly, that's not terrible for me at all. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hoping the Bruins can correct some of the mistakes of today and last game against Philly. Anyway, go Bees.